Apostate Ashley here, former pastor, now atheist. I am the communications director for a 501c3 nonprofit called the Clergy Project. In a moment, I will share what the Clergy Project is and what we offer, and in return, I would love your help sharing this video. The Clergy Project is exclusive for clergy and ex-clergy who no longer believe in anything of the supernatural. You can apply to be in the Clergy Project on our website, www.clergyproject.org. One of our screeners will do a video call with you or a phone call with you to ask you a few important questions about your time in ministry and why you no longer believe. Once approved, you will have access to our discreet online forum, as well as our hidden Facebook group. A lot of our members are anonymous and like to keep it that way, using a pseudonym because they are not ready to come out in the open yet about being an atheist. Being a member of the Clergy Project, you have to understand the anonymity of a lot of the members. We offer subsidized therapy sessions with the Secular Therapy Project, as well as career training. When you are clergy and your whole life is completely tied to the ministry, it can be very difficult to leave. It isn't like a normal job where you can put your 2 weeks notice in and move on to something else. Your church community, your local community, your finances, your family, your marriage, your children are all usually tied in to your ministry. So for some, it feels impossible to leave when you no longer believe. A lot of us only know the ministry and never got any proper schooling outside of Bible college or seminary in order to be able to work in the real world in a secular environment. As a clergy member, coming out as an atheist can be extremely scary and seem almost impossible. A lot of the times it can destroy families. It can lead to divorce. It could lead to you losing your job, your finances, almost immediately. It can lead to being publicly shunned. It can lead to losing all of your friends and everyone that you've been around for many years. So any clergy or ex-clergy need to know that this nonprofit exists, that we are here to help, we're here to help you get out, and we're here to help you figure out what your next steps are. Personally, being in the Clergy Project has been one of the best things I've ever done for myself.
Here we are. Good morning, my beauties and bees. It is Saturday. We are live from the Hive. It is 11:39 a.m. and this is a very special episode, but special for quite a few reasons. First and foremost, this is my first episode. I just bumped my camera, so now I'm going to be all blurry. It's going to drive me crazy. There we go. We'll do that. And then, yeah, that refocused me. All right, so today is the first live from the Hive since my I only got do a little bit of the opening statements and stuff on the debate, to my debate review. That thing turned out amazing. I had an amazing live chat. You guys were freaking awesome. I know I couldn't keep up. I should have asked somebody to monitor the live chat for me. It was the biggest stream that I've ever done. The most people that I've ever just had consistently watching. We got up to 50 some viewers, which I know doesn't sound like a lot but my channel's only 1,030 people or something like that, subscribers. So that's pretty good watch for most of the time. I stayed above 40 viewers the whole time. Had Aaron and Jay, and then we had a surprise visit from Dave Farida himself, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, you got Professor Dave, how'd you pull that up?" You know what I did? I was on Twitter and I asked. I said, "Hey, Aaron and I are doing a review of your debate. We actually got somebody who worked in the Linsky Labs coming on to review it, and he's like, heck yeah, I want to come and say hi and pop in for a visit. And he did. And actually, it was fun just listening to Dave and Aaron go back and forth a little bit, and it was an amazing time. So if you didn't catch it, go back and watch it. I do believe I had the inside scoop as far as I was the first person to have Dave on my channel after the debate. So that was like post-debate coverage. That was top post-debate coverage. So I really did enjoy that. I am going to try to keep doing the Sting a little bit more like that, where we do after show thing for a debate. So if you guys like that kind of content, I did enjoy it. So I do intend to continue to do so. But that was great. That was awesome, actually. But this week's been pretty awesome in general, because today is the 100th episode of CryptoCorner. Yay! Woo! Yeah! All right, so I do got something very special for us planned for CryptoCorner today. So keep that in mind. I'm going to start trying to schedule some outings now. It's warm. It's almost June. I should be out getting some backyard safaris for you guys and exploring some of the wildness around. I haven't done that in almost 2 years, and that's what one thing that my channel was built on, is making sure to show you guys how to acknowledge, notice, and respect the beautiful nature around you, especially the things that you might be averse to otherwise, like spiders and stuff. So we'll get back out there. Don't you worry. I just got to get my confidence back up to be out in the public world. I'm still having some trouble with that, but we grow as people. I grow as a woman, and maybe I will get to a place where I'm more confident and can be out in public a little bit easier. I'm still working on me, so thank you so much for sticking with me, guys. I couldn't keep doing this without you guys. Yeah, this should have been one of the Ozark Centipede, the 100. Yes, that's one of my favorite cryptids, the Ozark Giant Centipede, because not many people know about it, and it's got a rich, deep history. If you haven't watched that episode, it's way back in the catalog, but they have a rich history, dating back hundreds of years of white settlers interacting with these giant centipedes in the Ozarks. Not when I say giant, I mean they're not the size of like anacondas or anything, but they're big centipedes that we don't know, that are not scientifically verified to exist. So interesting stuff nonetheless. All right, so as I've been mentioning, 100th episode, CryptoCorner, and it's going to be a bit different because since I have a guest on for this episode, it's pre-recorded. So what I'm going to do is just basically watch it with you. I probably won't stop too much though, because it's my content. So I don't have to, and it's me talking to my guest. So, yeah, without further ado, let's just move right into CryptoCorner. All right. Hello, hello, and welcome to Cryptic Corner, where we explore the unexplained, the supernatural, the paranormal, and the hidden, the mysterious, the alien, and the accursed, and the forbidden. So, thank you so much for joining me tonight for a very, very special, a 100th episode special of Cryptic Corner. Today, we're not changing up the format completely, but we are changing up the format a bit because I will be having, this hair is driving me crazy. I will be having a special guest on today. So for today's episode, I did reach out to a friend of mine to come on and do an interview about a very specific cryptid that is very near and dear to their hearts. So I'm glad they had time to carve out. We did about an hour of conversation, and I'm going to share that conversation with you now. Please note that I had a little bit of short notice to get the stuff to clip together, and this episode has been burning in the back of my brain for quite some time. So I'm super excited about it, and I hope that you all are excited about this topic as well. Let me move right in, and let's just get started. All right, make sure we have sound. And here we go. Oh, no, we don't have sound. Hold on. Let's see. There, that'll do it. That'll do it.
I think. Croatian national anthem.
Seem to face up to the facts. I'm tense and nervous and I can't relax. I can't sleep cause my bed's on fire. Don't touch me, I'm a red. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Better run, 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 run away. Psycho killer, qu'est-ce que c'est? Better run, 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 run away. Oh.
All right, well, I don't want to keep you too long, so let's get right down to the topic here. So let me explain explain the framework here. Okay, so I do a segment on my show called Cryptic Corner.
I know Cryptic Corner.
Okay, and I do cover a lot of cryptozoology stuff. And there was this Victorian notion of the killer ape in Africa, that whether it was a gorilla or what it was, had different names for them. That they lived in Africa, and through history up until, like you mentioned, the Billy ape, when we were communicating back and forth. People are still trying to find this lost mystery ape, right? So I figured I'd do this 100th episode segment on it, and my audience, like, we have a huge overlap in our audience for this segment. So yeah, so they will love to see you on here. So keep this on the down low until next Saturday. But yeah, so I figured I'd have Erica come on and I'd pick her brain about this concept and kind of how it overlaps with the actual study of primatology.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so that's my background, right? Like I got my BSA in pre-professional animal science. I was on the pre-vet track, but then I got my master's of research in primate biology, behavior, and conservation, and I'm a current PhD student entering my 3rd year in biological anthropology. So I am absolutely tickled by the concept of these large cryptid-esque, apes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I had myself muted. I said, did any of you all realize that it was gonna be Erica? Anybody? Yeah, you're using the bugbot muted command. Thank you. It works. It works. Did you all was there any notion that it was gonna be Erica? Did you guys realize that? Yay!
In the heart of Africa, or as they used to, very inappropriately call it, like the dark continent, right?
Yeah. The dark heart of Africa, yeah.
Heart of Africa is just like, oh god, cringe. Versus, you get the bipedal apes of North America, Bigfoot and Sasquatch and Abominable Snowman.
You got the Yetis and everywhere.
Yeah, even go. Like you get a lot of really interesting cryptids that are they're like the wild man archetype, and some of them are more, usually if they're actually primates in the local area, they tend to be more non-human primate-esque, and if they're in areas without primates, they tend to be much more human. And it's like, oh, it's like the wild man, the savage, blah blah blah, whatever. And it's all very, very dicey sometimes.
I have a question about that with things like the North American, or not North American, with things the European wild man and in the medieval images and stuff. Now I know that they're in Germany and such. There were apes. Yeah, large apes. So I wonder if these ideas were based on maybe some early fossil finds in Europe.
I mean, yeah, who's to say? I would say as well that, for a very long time, humans, as in anatomically Homo sapiens, from about 300,000 odd years ago to now, when we typically, place the origin of our species all the way up to the more anatomically, behaviorally modern Homo sapiens. We, for the vast majority of the time our species have existed, have inhabited the world with other hominins, and other hominins that lived in different ways. They were human in different ways. There's more than one way to be a human, of course. And so I think it would also not be outside of the realm of possibility that some of
Yeah. I'm gonna have to stop doing that, right? I wish the mute button was a big red button that I could see. It's not. It's like a tiny little thing where I have to click on it and then hit, and then it opens up a menu and hit mute and unmute. It's really annoying. But I'm all about that mute life. Anyway, I was saying this. I'm of the opinion that humans is anything in the genus Homo, right? Anything in the genus Homo is human. Now, if you want to extend it to hominini, that's going to include rope in some apes.
These other hominins survived a bit later than perhaps we give them credit for. Not till now, I would say, but 10,000 years ago, even 8,000 years ago, it wouldn't shock me, given Neanderthals survived at least until about 40,000 years ago. If they themselves, or at the very least memories of these people, survived, and given we're humans and we really like to otherize people, that's
groups,
we like to otherize people groups, and this is a really double-edged sword, because the idea of the othering is thought to have evolved because it's it increases our in-group closeness by othering the out-group, and so it's it increases social bonds within the group, which is great for the in-group and horrible for the out-group. So it wouldn't surprise me if people, being how people are, refer to these guys as something less than human when they're different members of genus Homo. But Miocene apes, they were in Europe, in places like Germany, about the middle Miocene until about 7 million years ago is usually the rough date that things start to kind of disappear in Europe. After you get the catastrophic climate change occurring at the end of the Miocene, and switching from this warm, nice greenhouse where all these lovely, humid, foresty areas that apes can thrive in, to not that seasonal and very hostile towards animals that rely on kind of a consistent climate, and it shoves all of the apes back into Southeast Asia and into Africa.
So when it comes to these ape groups moving throughout the old world, right? Where did carnivory arise? And did it arise multiple times in multiple groups?
Oh, in apes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's a really interesting question. Like, I was actually talking with a vegan individual on Twitter about this today. So all primates, as far as I know, are opportunistically omnivorous. And the reason for this is because most primates are capable of at least occupying a semi-generalist niche and niche. For those of you who get mad at me for mispronouncing it. But it's like, meat is really high in energy.
Y'all watch what's
especially if
going
you're something
on
like
in the
a
background here. These chimps are going to get crazy. I have to pause this every now and then to because this particular video is...
You sit around all day trying to digest what is, pretty undigestible material. You could use all the help you can get. So most primates today are going to be opportunistically omnivorous, and some more so than others. So, for example, lots of cercopithecoids, things like baboons and macaques. These guys are going to do a lot more opportunistic carnivory than something like a leaf monkey, right? Or like a langur or something
Mr. Raccoon did not get away from the chimpanzees, as you can see.
Along those lines. And apes tend to fall right on that line, with gorillas not doing that much opportunistic omnivory. But chimps are on the other end of the spectrum, where they are going to really, really prioritize meat when they can get it, which isn't very often. I mean, it's not even 10% of their diet, but still it's meaningful enough to them that it acts as social capital. Those who procure meat can share it with those they want to improve relationships with. They will tag team hunts. So usually groups of males, although females tend to join into it as well, and females on their own.
They really do look like a little group of people trying to catch a raccoon, right? Yeah, meat's back on the menu, boys. That's chimpanzees for you.
Will typically hunt with tools, but they will procure bush babies or duiker or colobus monkeys, things of that nature, and eat meat. And bonobos will do it too. This is something that I feel like a lot of people don't appreciate, but bonobos, they're peaceful compared to chimps, but compared to gorillas, they can also get a little violent. And
they're still pannins. Yeah,
they're still pannins, right? They're still pannins, and we're hominins and pannins. We're one another's closest living relatives. So as far as where did carnivory first emerge, one of the primary hypotheses for why did primates evolve in the first place is something called the visual predation hypothesis. So it's this idea that when primates first emerge, our adaptations existed for capturing insects, right? So grasping hands up in the trees, big eyes. And these days it tends to go hand in hand with the angiosperm coevolution hypothesis. So these two things kind of go in tandem, getting fruit and spreading seeds for fruit, co-evolving with the angiosperms, and also consuming insects. And that kind of creates the original
the pollinators,
primate.
Yeah,
the pollinators, right. So you get your original primate form, and things diverge from that. So if we're okay, when did we first become carnivorous? It's if you want to take that idea, it's the very, very beginning, and it's actually lost as a primary diet in most primates. But as I said, most will also opportunistically eat eggs, bugs, little vertebrates, or even larger vertebrates if they can actually get their hands on them. It all just depends. And that's what makes primates so interesting and kind of so prolific, is because they're so capable of filling this generalist niche when need be. And a lot of being a generalist is just, what can you eat? What can you digest?
It's almost like all the other primate or all the other anthropoids will eat anything that a tarsier would eat.
Oh yeah. And tarsiers are the only strictly carnivorous primates, right? They are the only one, which kind of makes the killer ape idea even funnier, because it's if you actually had a killer primate, it would just be a large tarsier with eyes lurking, with its weird lengthy limbs through the underbrush in the dead of night, which is much spookier than a big cute gorilla.
They always that kind of hard agree. Gorillas are adorable. Brings me to the next step on the way, because gorillas, the discovery of gorillas and the way that they were reported on in the Victorian era, especially in England, but throughout Europe as well, painted a very, very different image of what we came to find out about these animals. Do you know a bit enough about that history laid out?
So a touch, right? But I mean, like
Yeah.
you get all these Victorian folks, the gentleman adventurers who head down to places like sub-Saharan Africa and far out in Indonesia and places like this, and they're first encountering all of these animals. Like we must appreciate too that it's like that's when gorillas were discovered by the West, right? Like,
yeah.
people who lived there were like, yeah, dude, like it's just gorillas. Like they just hang out and we don't bother them and they don't really bother us. And
sometimes we eat them.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, exactly. I mean, you really want a killer ape, right? Like the killer ape was inside the house all along.
Right.
The thing is like in pinning gorillas with being these violent apes, it's just such a misconception. And like I understand why it was made, because most gorillas live in a polygynous social system. So the way that this works, for those of you who might not know, is you've got a male and there are several females who kind of stick by that male. Now, contrary to how like your run-of-the-mill kind of incel-pilled folks on Twitter might place it, right? Like he's not violently keeping these females present. The females stick with him because they have children with him, and they know that he will protect the interests of their kids in case another male comes along and potentially commits infanticide on them. When females don't have dependent offspring, they're liable to just take off and go somewhere else. And the male will try to prevent them to, but he can't keep track of all of them, right? So the group that's sticking with the silverback is somewhat in flux depending on the status of the females. But it's like you get these Victorian adventurers, right? And they're cutting their way through, the Congo bush, and they come across a troop of gorillas. And you've got a male, and he sees this random strange-looking creature come through the brush, dressed in all these funky clothes and carrying a big loud stick, and he wants to protect his group. So what he does is he charges. And one of my buddies actually just got back from studying gorillas. I think she was in Luongo. But she told me that like it's not uncommon for males to bluff charge. So they basically charge to say back off. It's the same thing as like an elk putting its antlers down to say don't come near me. It's not necessarily like he's actually coming to kill you. He's just charging you to say get the hell away. But these Victorian adventurers see a gorilla.
I still feel like I'm like, if someone pops in and watches this, it's like Erica's being interviewed by the Bree twins, because there's one over here and one over there of me, and we got different hair.
Charging at them, and perhaps understandably get scared and shoot him before they realize that he's actually not trying to kill them. He's just saying get out of here. It's the way that they communicate with one another. And so all of a sudden now you've got this narrative of like, if you even come within eyesight of one of these big male silverbacks, he's going to come and immediately try to kill you, which would have been a lot different from these guys first encountering something like a chimpanzee or bonobo later on, or orangutans especially, who are like, I don't care who you are or why you are there. So the narrative would have really quickly proliferated amongst, especially like your broadsheets, right, where everybody's like, oh yeah, look at another gorilla attack in the heart of Africa. It's a bummer, but
yeah. So there was this adventurer called Duchalis that actually he was a protege of Richard Owens. The Richard Owens, who wanted to define, he was sent down, or he sent the skull back to Owens. But, and we don't get into this here, but Richard, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. We don't get into it here, but Richard Owens was a staunch anti-evolutionist. So one of the key things that he wanted to present by showing these gorilla skulls was that there's no way that these creatures are related to humans. That was Sir Richard Owens' main point of view. So yeah, when he started having the gorilla, he thought that was his winning trump card there, because he thought they were so different than humans that we couldn't possibly be related to them. He went down and shot a gorilla, and he brought sculptures that were built of that image, right? And that's where, and then for the first half of the 20th century, that was repeated in newspaper comics, in book illustrations. This image of a gorilla grabbing a woman and taking off into the jungle with her, a white woman specifically, and then it became I call it the King Kong effect. I'm calling it that in my video here. So Yeah, and then that's where the archetype of the killer ape really takes hold. But it's not even the apes that you really want to worry about. The apes that are truly a danger, right? Which I mean, gorillas. I no doubt they could be dangerous if given the right circumstances.
Oh yeah, but I mean, there's not a single lethal attack in the wild of a gorilla and a human documented, as far as I know. They just don't. There's no reason to. You know, they don't see humans as like something worth killing, even, right? It's the males are in competition with other males primarily, and the females are in competition with other females. But the females they're not typically the ones who are trying to I guess protect the group, unless you're looking at like if you try to get in between a mom gorilla and her kid, I'm sure you would get ripped to pieces. But you know, typically speaking, these guys are coming up on these groups and the females bail and the male charges and ends up getting shot, and it's really sad.
Rinse and repeat, and that's the way the story goes. And yeah, and then they say, oh yeah, and then the legends start of, oh yeah, the gorilla came into the village and stole these people, and you know, they start embellishing additional aspects to the characteristics of the gorilla. Oh, this tribe in the dark heart of Africa, like you said, this really mighty whitey colonial language that they used. This tribe sacrifices one of their women to the. There's actually a documentary that I found, Nagini or something like that. That's allegedly about a gorilla in a village that was kidnapping women, and it had. Yes, I did mispronounce it. It's in Ngagi, not Nagigi. It was a gorilla. A guy in a gorilla suit was the monster, but the women were just native women. With like black grease paint on. It was really quite racist, but interesting to see how they displayed. And they used orangutans for some shots of the apes. They used chimps for other shots. Really interesting direction they went. Armadillos played a role in the ecology that they presented too. Yeah, which is bizarre.
I mean, like, yeah, you got to think too. I mean, it wasn't until Diane Fossey really got out there and did her work with gorillas and was able to send back word, like, yeah, like these guys they're not just like peaceful, they're super peaceful. And no one really expected gorillas to come out on.
Lena, you're going to have to be more specific. I got two hairdos on the screen right now. There's me live right here. And then there's that version of me over there talking to Erica.
Pop is like the most peaceful of the apes at that time, you know, because Goodall was studying chimps and Gallicus was studying the orangs, and even orangs can be a little bit more persnickety than gorillas can. It's quite fascinating. But like, you think about this idea of like a gorilla coming in and stealing women. A gorilla doesn't see a human as a potential mate. Like, it's not going to come after a person.
We don't have the right pheromones to attract gorillas, unfortunately. No. Yeah. Even though we share pubic lice with them, which is weird, but
it's something to think about. It's definitely concerning to me. But yeah, I mean, male gorillas aren't violent towards females either within their own troops. Like, males don't batter females. Like, you see some male, you know, violence towards females of like chimpanzees occasionally, but you don't really see it all that much, which, you know, kind of, it's interesting in a sad way when you look at how common it is in humans versus how rare it is, comparatively speaking, in other apes. I personally think it has a lot to do with the isolation of humans. You know, we live in such an atomized society today. You can't rely on kin to come to your aid when you need help. So, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay, and moving away from gorillas and refocusing on chimpanzees, which are a real threat to humans. Probably in the wild. I don't know if there's too many reports of them killing people in the wild. I know that they definitely can be threatening towards people.
Yeah, I mean, chimps too have different personalities, right? I mean, Jane Goodall studied the chimps at Gombe for so long, and she knew the chimps. She knew their personalities, just as, you know, a dog has a personality, a human has a personality, chimps do as well. And some of the alphas that she followed through the years, you know, later, the one that I saw when I was in Gombe was Ferdinand, and he was perfectly chill. I mean, you could walk right by him and it was okay. Frodo was the alpha near the end of her tenure there at Gombe, and he was absolutely vile. I mean, their to my understanding, there's actually a rule you can't go into Gombe if you're under a certain height or under a certain age, and the reason is because Frodo has killed before. He killed a child, actually, which isn't very surprising because chimpanzees will practice infanticide, and they also hunt colobus monkeys. So small things that look kind of like them are like consistently in danger, unfortunately. But as far as I know, chimpanzees aren't typically going to like go out of their way to attack an adult person. And part of the reason is because like they're quite a bit stronger than us, but it's not worth the risk. They don't tend to go on one-on-one bouts. They tend to get coalitions, and their violence tends to be social. So it's directed at other members within their group, or even members of another group that they're trying to systematically annihilate. Chimpanzees are pretty interesting.
Do the chimps understand that we're more dexterous than them, but they're stronger than us? Are they aware of that flux in our?
I don't know. My understanding is that they have some appreciation for it, because chimpanzees that are in captivity, if they can't perform a certain task, can like look to they'll look at a human to like get the job done for them, because they have an understanding of like, I can't do this, but I know that you can. Now, whether or not they can trace that specifically to our dexterity and our slow twitch muscles, I don't know. But they're certainly intelligent enough to have an understanding of like, this is what I'm capable of doing, this is what you are capable of doing. But like, yeah, I think they also understand too that humans, even though I think they understand that when we have like a weapon with us, it's kind of a different story. Yeah. We become very dangerous when we've got, the Rudy Tooty point and shooty.
So yeah, you probably don't even need a real gun, just something that looks like a gun, right? And they'd give you a wide berth.
Or a sharp weapon, they can attack with sharp rocks and sharpened sticks and things like that. They can hit each other with objects, and they will. But like a steel knife, I'm pretty sure a chimpanzee is capable of being like, I am not going to go over there right now and mess with that person. And I don't want to ruin chimpanzees' reputations too much. They are known for their ability to have coordinated violence, and they're political animals and things like that. But they're also incredibly complicated animals, much like humans are, right? Or gorillas are, or bonobos are. So not all of them are violent, and their violence is familiar in how it's utilized. It's not just wanton, violence for violence's sake.
It's political violence. Really, it is.
It's political violence, and it's relationship violence. It's those two.
So they have the same, very much like us, both domestic or political. It's always, yeah. Now, there was the Gombe Chimpanzee War. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this was the first documented systematic annihilation of one group of chimpanzees by an adjacent group. So you had one of the groups, I can't remember, I think it was the G group, but I'm not sure. It was one of the groups that effectively would patrol its territory, and it started patrolling into the territory of the adjacent chimpanzees. Now, typically the ones who go on these patrols are males, which is also familiar to what we do in humans, but not always. In fact, what I found was really interesting in reading one of Richard Wrangham's books is that females will go on these patrols, but only if they have no kids, which is, it's also very familiar, right? Like, they don't.
That is true. Politics does start as domestic, but it's not really domestic if it's between two groups, though. It'd be more like you fighting with your neighbor than it would be like you fighting with somebody inside your house. It'd be like you fighting with you and your family fighting with your neighbor and their family. So that wouldn't be so much domestic, but it could be considered political, since there's no outside authority to say, hey, no, this is your property line. So they have to establish that themselves with a makes right sort of social structure, where unfortunately it leads to what we would call homicide if humans did it. But since it's interspecific, since it's chimpanzees, we have to call it interspecific killing. That's really silly. Murder and homicide and things like that are just preserved for humans, but it's the same behaviors as seen in other primates. We just, it's something I like to complain about, called human exceptionalism.
They don't want to risk getting killed because they've got
an infinite home. Yeah,
they've got an infinite home. So, but the females without dependent offspring, would sometimes tag along. And the ones who did so consistently. So they had kind of a propensity, the same propensity towards like territory expand, territory protect. Anyway, so these groups of chimpanzees would penetrate into the adjacent society and find lone males, almost exclusively lone males. Sometimes they would attack females, but rarely would they attack them, and even rarer was lethal attacks on females. So it was explicitly males. So they would attack these males and they would kill them, like not just kill them kind of, but like kill them viciously in ways that are unnecessarily vicious, like biting off fingers, ripping off ears, swinging the testicles around. Mutilation, torture, really. And it's kind of spooky, right? Because like they understand that these are the vulnerable portions.
And that's what they will do to other people too. Or to other people. Yeah, because I think of chimps as people. I mean, they're a people to me, but we talk about that later on too. But yeah, chimps are vicious. They know how to inflict pain and keep you alive while they're doing it.
And these are the portions that hurt, and it almost seems like you're sending a message, like, you know, I'm sure all the other chimpanzees in the area heard what was going on. Sound travels quite far in the jungle. And they did this systematically, right? Going from lone chimpanzee to lone chimpanzee, catching them off guard or unaware and killing them. And eventually all that was left was females, right? And the remaining females either pushed further out away and never came back, or they were assimilated into the troop. And that's what the war was, right? Is that it was this, really more than anything, it was a conquering, it was a conquest, it was a chimpanzee conquest. This one group absorbed the other systematically and intentionally, and like these patrols
viciously.
Yeah, and these patrols were not random, right? Like they were coordinated and they were incremental, right? So it was like we're going on, and the way that you can see, you hear these patrols described as very eerie. You know, chimpanzees are loud and playful and whatever. They are dead silent when they're moving through the underbrush, specifically on patrols, right? Like when they're moving around, like from tree to tree or from food patch to food patch, like they're raucous, they're loud, they're having a good time. But when they're on patrol, like to go in,
Lena, and if a chimpanzee kills a human, it's intraspecific. So there's interspecific and intraspecific. So there's within your own species killing, and then there's outside of your species killing. We make special words for all animal behaviors when humans do them to make ourselves feel special. That was my whole morality debate with Mark, was just about that, basically. Even the notion of morality is just us having special names for something that's not unique to humans. We just have a special name for it when humans do it. When animals do it, we call it something else.
Invade, they are quiet. And one will take lead, like they like a whole like point strat. It's nuts when you read some
wow.
And it's interesting too, because like this has happened at Gombe, but to my understanding, like the eastern chimpanzees, so Kibale and Gombe, are a lot more violent than the western chimpanzees at like Thai forest. And you know what's fascinating with that as well is that the females actually have closer bonds in the western chimpanzee groups than the eastern chimpanzee groups, and they're less violent. The idea being,
as far as Dr. Tapioca Weasel, I don't think we should enter our own judiciary judgment against other apes for their behaviors. When it's intraspecific, we can handle it like we do any other intraspecific killing that we have. We have certain social standards in our society for dealing with dangerous animals. And that's going to be handled differently if it's a wild animal or an animal kept in captivity. Those situations would be handled differently. Yeah, but Jay's saying there is how intra's within your group. So when we kill or when because there's intraspecific conflict and interspecific conflict. Interspecific conflict is between two species. Intraspecific conflict is between your own species. Yeah. Intraspecific is when is when like a chimpanzee group kills another chimpanzee group, right? Interspecific is when the chimpanzee group kills the gorilla group or kills a human.
That females understand the risk to their offspring when these kinds of tussles break out and when they kind of invite trouble like this. And so their goal is to kind of, more commonly, is to diffuse it and keep relationships good. Again, not always, because females are going on these patrols too. So I think it has something to do with the dependent kid, honestly.
Yeah, the mother not wanting to risk getting injured while out on patrol and leaving her kid with no one to care for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, or bringing the wrath down of the adjacent group and having your kid get killed, right? Like, I think they have to understand it, like, they're just more risk averse when they've got a dependent offspring. And you see this behavior too in males where there's a lot of male paternal care. They're much less keen to take risks when you've got a kid.
So you mentioned that there was almost exclusively against other males. What about infants? Were the infants of the other troop, were those killed as well?
If they could get a hold of them, they were. Infanticide is because the males have a clear understanding of, like, they want to mate with females because it's going to give them offspring. And females are typically in chimpanzees and in bonobos, interestingly, they're interestingly similar in how in primatology it's like promiscuous, but that language is kind of silly and dated. But the idea is that it's a female who will mate with multiple males. And in chimpanzees, this is thought to be a strategy against infanticide. So if you mate with all the males, none of the males know who the dad is, and so it prevents against infanticide. Bonobos have zero risk of infanticide. There is absolutely zero risk of a male killing their offspring because the females will kill him if he tries. Bonobos are female bonded and matriarchal, and so they are very violent towards males that cause problems. And so there's no risk for infanticide, but they're also extremely promiscuous. In fact, they're way more so than chimpanzees. They use sex to diffuse social situations and social tensions. And so
demonetized.
It's almost like, I think that's almost a bit of support for, like, the common ancestor having the regular infanticidal backing for the promiscuity, as it were. And then bonobos are just kind of like, no, screw that. Like, this is just fun. Like, we just got to do this anyway.
Look at them. They're getting it on in the water.
So
isn't that crazy? Look at them. Just banging away in the water.
Males would go in, they would kill infants if they could. But, like, they weren't really catching that many infants because the infants are going to stay with mom, right? And so this is why... I don't know this for sure. I'd need to check it, but I would wager, if I double checked the assimilated females versus the ones that fled, I would wager that the ones that fled had dependent offspring, because they know if they move into the group with a dependent kid, that kid is not going to see the end of the week.
It'd be safer to live. Would it be safer to live in, like, a little female group until your kid grew up and then come back?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know if they would do that. I don't know if they did do that. They might have, but, like, I mean, it's risky to be a lone chimpanzee. There's leopards, and chimpanzees can fall prey to big predators that live in the areas. But still, it's probably better to stick to the periphery, at least with your offspring, if your group is toast, because otherwise your kid's definitely getting infanticided. It's pretty reasonable guess.
All right, and okay, next thing I wanted to touch on is similar to chimp behavior, but let's take it interspecific with gorillas, because that's new. That's as far as my news feed goes. That's fairly new. Within the last couple of years, this new research has been coming out.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So, like, chimpanzees, this is one of the ideas, one of the hypotheses between, like, why are chimps and bonobos so different? And one of the reasons that's been proposed is that chimpanzees have to deal with gorillas. And so dealing with gorillas, having a propensity towards violence, is going to be beneficial for them as far as securing resources goes, whereas bonobos don't have gorillas in their habitat, so they can be really chill. They don't have to have these, very aggressive, proactive tendencies. So I don't know if that's, like,
is the chillness of bonobos and the chillness of gorillas, is it the same type of behaviors? Are bonobos filling the gorillas' niche in their habitat because there's no gorillas there?
I would say gorillas are probably more chill than bonobos, because bonobos will still hunt, and, like, they'll also still fight. Like, the males will fight and the females will fight, and females form coalitions to get what they want, and, like, they're just less. I like to think of bonobos as chill compared to chimps, but, like, they still can. I mean, again, they're also really closely related to us, so like they can also have a real mean streak when they want to. And like my friend who studied gorillas studied bonobos first, and she was telling me like, yeah, especially when they get a hold of like a monkey, like a colobus monkey or something like that, being it up, like they can be exceptionally cruel with that because they're curious. It's like a toddler but with no empathy, like for something that it deems a food stuff, right? Because when little kids have access to pets, they're like, oh, this is a pet, like I'm not supposed to hurt it. But to bonobos, they have access to a little monkey and they're like, well, we're eating this, so might as well play around with our food a little bit. I mean, they're extraordinarily empathetic to one another, but not to stuff that's going to be eaten.
That's why they give Coco a kitten, but you don't see them giving gorilla or chimpanzees a kitten to play with.
Or bonobos.
Yeah, or bonobos. Yeah.
Gorillas can handle a kitten. Chimps, panons, not so much. I think they're just too rough because they're so curious and they're so.
We saw how they treated the raccoon earlier. If you missed that, it was pretty brutal. They were flinging it around. It went flying through the air. Yeah.
So, they're curious in like a very active way. So they're like, I want to see how this thing works. But yeah, like the idea is that chimpanzees are more violent than bonobos because they are sympatric with gorillas. This is interesting because we have other apes that are sympatric, right? Like orangs are sympatric with gibbons, but they never harm each other. I mean, a gibbon can like walk right up to an orangutan and it is perfectly fine. We house them together in zoos. So I don't know necessarily if that's the reason. I think maybe it has to do with that plus a predisposition that may have evolved in chimpanzees much earlier in time. I'm not sure. But what I do know is that chimpanzees, as I'm sure everybody, who's doing the channel probably knows, will kill gorillas sometimes. And there was a report on this published a couple years back now, probably 1 or 2 years back, of a successful infanticide of 2 gorilla infants by chimps. And what was really weird about it, at least to me, is that they didn't eat the gorillas. They killed them, but they didn't eat them, which suggests to me that they weren't killing the gorillas.
And just so you know, you're not going to want to miss this because I do have some Chat GPT, King Kong, and King Louie ship steamy romance that I'm going to read at the end of this. So stick around for that till.
Gorilla infants because they saw them as like a rival chimpanzee group, or as a food source, but as a rival, similar to a rival chimpanzee group, because they also won't typically cannibalize other chimps that they eat. They will sometimes, but not typically. So they kill these infants, and then and a female was involved in that too, in that lethal attack. So it's very, very strange.
Yeah, from what I understand, the silverback tried with all his might to drive them off, and they kept coming for the baby and wouldn't.
He tried for a bit, and then he was like, "This is too many chimps," and he was like, "I'm out of here." And it's one female gorillas are bigger than male chimps, but not by much.
Right.
So one female gorilla versus 5 or 6 chimpanzees, male or female, it doesn't matter. Chimps aren't that dimorphic, and so they're going to be able to get a hold of that offspring, and I mean, it just didn't work out. I mean, and I think that's what's funny is that poor gorillas get painted as the killer ape, and chimpanzees are the ones seemingly starting all the fights. And gorillas even. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Can chimpanzees be housed with orangutans? Or I say orangutans. Orangutan. Sorry, it slipped off my tongue.
No, to my understanding, no. To my understanding, they can be housed with anything.
Okay. Even bonobos and chimps have to be separate too.
Oh yeah, they have to be separate because they're socially incompatible.
Yeah.
I mean, a chimpanzee sees the highest ranking male as the dominant in the hierarchy, whereas bonobos it's the top ranking female. Females form female coalitions. Males form male coalitions in bonobos versus chimps respectively. So you'd have a poor sad, you put a female bonobo in with a bunch of chimps, and she's gonna be trying to get the girl squad together, get the gang together, and all the female chimps are gonna be like, screw you, I don't want to hang out with you, like get out of here.
Yeah. Stop spreading feminism up in here.
We don't do feminism here. And then conversely, you'd get your trad wife chimp over in the Actually, female chimps will occasionally form coalitions, and when they do, they're badass. So I think it's really it's less tradwifey and more like doomer preppy. Like they're like, whatever, we have a rough lot here, and we're just gonna kind of keep to ourselves. But
Yeah.
it's funky because gorillas. So gorillas are weird. They are folivorous, so they eat primarily leaves. They'll sit and eat leaves all day, and their teeth are adapted for that as well. But given the opportunity, gorillas will pick fruit over leaves 100 times over 100. They don't like eating leaves, and they'll only eat leaves when there's no fruit around.
Tortoises are the same way. They're like almost completely folivorous, but they will eat fruit and flowers and completely ignore their favorite greens if they're available, right? Like, I had a tortoise that just loved clovers to death, but when those clover blossoms would bloom, oh, you forget about them clover leaves because she wants the purple flowers. Nom nom nom.
So what's fascinating is that in areas where gorillas and chimpanzees are sympatric, you've got fruiting seasons and non-fruiting seasons. When the season is good and there's a lot of fruit to go around, chimps and gorillas, they're fine. Like, they will eat in the same general area. There's plenty of fruit to go around. They won't hustle each other. But when the fruit becomes out of season and chimpanzees have to, their fission fusion grouping system. So fission, they stay together. Fusion, they stay together. Fission, they spread out. So depending on how many resources there are, they change their grouping. When
I like
fruit
the guy
is
with the
scarce,
sword.
they fission out and form much smaller groups. And gorillas won't touch fruit. And during that time of the season, seemingly because they don't want to have competition. They fall back on leaves when fruit is out of season instead of fighting the chimps for the fruit. And that lethal attack occurred during the non-seasonal period. So I don't know if they ever showed support for this, but the idea was that the chimpanzees were already on high alert. There wasn't very much fruit to go around. They saw the gorillas, and they just went for it. Like, get out of here. And then they managed to kill the kids too.
Oh my gosh, that was it. Just, I was shocked to hear that because it was like, it's like something out of fiction, really, because those kind of interactions. You think of chimps and gorillas living in the same areas, but maybe to me it seems like maybe the chimps live a little bit deeper in, and the gorillas live more are in the open areas. Is that
Yeah, I mean, mostly it's how they range. So chimpanzees versus gorillas have different ranges, and their patterns are different as well. So like I said, gorillas will stay in one stable group. Chimpanzees change their grouping patterns depending on the season. They move around a bit more. There's just a lot that goes into it. But yeah, it seems like something out of fiction. And again, like, not all chimps are like that. There was that Disney documentary Chimpanzee from a while back. That was actually a really interesting, weird situation that showed an individual personality rising above general trends. It was a male chimpanzee who adopted and took care of a younger male chimpanzee, like a kid that was, his mother got killed. Like, this is an infant that would normally be infanticided. He took him under his wing and even carried him on his back. Like, he treated him exactly, as a mother chimp would treat her offspring. They're people in a way. They have their personalities. They're not literally people, obviously, but they have personhood to a degree, I think. I'm
actually an advocate of that, so I think that
as well. I think they deserve personhood, at least greater consideration than what they're getting now.
There's a reason why we say anthropomorphized, because they're anthropoids and they need to be recognized as anthropoids at least. I could extend it to different. John, don't hurt your hand punching the wall, sweetie.
Obsidians, like, so many deserve greater consideration than they are currently getting.
Corvids.
Yeah. Oh yeah, corvids. Yeah, corvids. That's gonna be tough because those guys are the only ones out of the group who are just everywhere. Like, they're just hanging
and they're
out.
assholes too. They're like we don't want to. Fuck you, humans. We don't.
Yeah, they'll intentionally mess with you. And you can, like, befriend them, right? Like, they'll, like, bring you trinkets, like little shiny things.
Yeah, I watch a few channels where the ravens, or I think they're crows, that exchange stuff for corn and stuff. Yeah.
They like befriended them. It's so, I mean, the kid. I often wonder, like, if maybe some of these ideas of, like, the killer ape might have been initially bolstered by these misunderstandings of gorilla behavior, and then kind of propped up by chimpanzee behavior and, like, captivity, which, before we actually learned how to house them, which I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of an angry chimpanzee.
Oh yeah, I even remember the zoos from when I was a kid. I'm a few years older than you, but the zoos when I was a kid, they still had the the apes in concrete enclosures. There wasn't really much
yeah.
to it. Yeah, it was back when the big cats were still in the size of my bedroom with this iron bars all around and a roof over their heads, and it was and some a bale of straw in there with them. It was sad, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Zoos have come a long way, though, especially the St.
Yeah.
Louis Zoo, which is my local zoo, and I what they've done, what the St. Louis Zoo has done for orangutans.
Their orang exhibit is so cool. I've been to St. Louis Zoo a couple of times. My my now husband and I, we used to meet in St. Louis halfway when we were kind of doing like the long distance thing. It sucked, but we'd meet in St. Louis and like we'd go to the zoo all the time. And their orang exhibit is awesome.
Oh yes, yeah. It's like
and the orangs seem quite happy there. You know, I mean, yeah,
and they're there as ambassadors too. You got to think of them as ambassadors for their species. Just wish somebody would come take me to the zoo this weekend. That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. I haven't been to the zoo in years. And it'd be awesome. The best part about it would be every time I've gone to the zoo for the last 20 years, it's I've been on parent duty, so more focused on making sure the kids get to see everything they want to see, and taking care of doing all the fun kid stuff for them. But I would like to go to the zoo as a scientist. I would, and just be able to be on my own time with the friends, with a friend or with friends, and just look at the animals and actually enjoy taking in the uniqueness of each species. That would just I need to go back. I need to get to the zoo. Say, hey, these guys are losing so much land.
Yeah. I'm a big advocate for zoos. Like, I know it's sad. Of course it's sad. It's sad that animals can't be in their natural habitat, but like some of them cannot go back, and where better to put them than a place where humans can actually see them and grow to appreciate them and care about them. I mean, think about this is the zoo, your local zoo is like the only like time that the vast majority of people can ever interact with these species in any capacity. I think it's important. And that's how you get people to give a shit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me I got a couple more things I just wanted to wrap up on. The chimps in captivity are not let's go over the chimps are not pets, just real quick.
Chimps, zero primate pets, none. Never have a primate pet ever, you guys. It is such a bad idea. They are like even your dumber primates are like within the range of like young humans as far as their intelligence and stimulation needs go. And when primates are understimulated, like think about what happens when humans get understimulated. They do very, very, what would be the word? Like aberrant things. Like they're more violent than they should be, and more anxious than they should be, and all sorts of stuff like that. So pet primates are bad in general. Pet chimpanzees is like another level of bad. That's like bad, but the consequences can be lethal. You're talking about raising from childhood, right? A little person that will eventually grow to the intelligence of like a 3 to 4 year old human that is as strong as as like 3 guys, like 3 adult human males that are in shape. And when they get mad, when 3 to 4 year old kids get mad, they throw a temper tantrum. What happens when you get like 3 guys throwing a temper tantrum, but it's in the body of one large animal? They start breaking stuff, and they can hurt people. Even if it's unintentional, they can hurt people. And sometimes it's intentional, because as you had Travis in the notes, Travis was a pet chimpanzee, and they kept him dosed up on, what was it, Valium?
Yeah, he was all drugged up, and the person, one of his friends, he saw what was carrying his favorite toy while he was in a mood, and he was dosed out of his mind. I mean, this chimpanzee, he was also incredibly he was like overnourished, so he was like large even for a chimpanzee. He was a male, and he just like ripped the face off the person carrying his toy. And she has become an advocate, for people surviving trauma and things like that. But like, when they talk about how violent that attack was, it truly was. Because like we said, we were talking earlier about how chimpanzees treat other chimpanzees. That's a chimpanzee that is socialized with other chimps. Travis thought he was a person.
he'd never seen another chimp, right? I mean, so he sees her, this woman who's carrying his stuff, as another chimp, and acts out violently, and does to her what normally chimps do to each other, which is systematically annihilate them. Not good.
No. Travis, that's tragic. And people who do these things, who get these chimps as pet, the chimp is basically suffering from mental illness based on it not being able to live in its normal social group. It's the same thing as keeping elephants in captivity, which I am also completely against. As private zoos or private collections, it's disgusting to keep these animals that way. They need to have their social structures, and they need to be able to interact with their own kind and not be overly stimulated by human interference. That's just my opinion.
It's absolutely true. I mean, chimpanzees that are able to be around other chimps don't do this to people, right? Like this is the critical difference. Like chimps don't attack adult humans like this. And again, like Frodo is the exception. He was considered to be like very antisocial as far as chimpanzees go, but like we have antisocial people as well. I don't mean it in the actual DSM-5. Like I'm using it colloquially, people who aren't socialized as well, and it can create problems when they're interacting with other people. But like, yeah, Frodo wasn't socialized properly with other chimpanzees. He was naturally kind of predisposed to violence, and that's why he acted out. Other than that, like it's relatively uncommon. Chimps don't kill people in their regular interactions. Even chimps that interact with people all the time, like at sanctuaries or zoos or places like that. They're quite cooperative and very chill. But you can't take a chimpanzee away from every other member of its own kind where it can't interact, it can't learn social norms. It's like I think about like Siegfried and Roy, right? Like, you know, they got mauled by their tigers.
Yeah.
From my understanding, those tigers, and I don't know very much about the situation, and I'm also not a big cat expert, but my understanding is that the tigers weren't even trying to kill them. They were behaving as they would with like other tigers, which a tiger behaving like that to another tiger, like batting another tiger or biting the scruff of another tiger, is not going to kill another tiger. It will kill a squishy human. So it's like, we don't even for sure know that I mean, in Travis's case, I think it's pretty clear that he was behaving with lethal force because
he was doing what the chimps in the war were doing. Yeah,
right.
Sending a message.
But like most chimpanzees, when they interact with each other, and like even when chimpanzees act up on like tour groups and stuff like that, when you're walking through the jungle and things like that, they're gonna they might like smack you or drag you a couple of feet or something like that, but they're not gonna try to kill you. I mean, they're capable of fighting with each other within their group and not administering lethal force. It's it's messed up. So never ever support people who get primates for pets. Don't do it. It's a bad idea.
All right, and just a couple more things. We have the Billy apes. Thank you so much, Vandalia. Yeah, we do need to get our wasp and bee talk on the books for sure. You know how to reach me, sweetie. Thank you so much for the $9.99. You rock, my friend. We talked about those a bit, but yeah, they're just big Eastern chimpanzees, as far as I understand, and it was a sensationalized story, but exactly the last quest for this mystery ape, right?
Yeah, and they're quite large Eastern chimpanzees, and there's this thing where like chimpanzees, apes in general, when they're large enough, because of the amount that they have to chew, this is typical for large animals in general, but they tend to form a sagittal crest. So it's a crest of bone that goes across the sagittal plane of the skull.
That's Kermit, by the way.
Sagittal crest is
Kermit, as far as I know, is the biggest chimpanzee that was ever in captivity, and he was a couple 100 pounds. He's a massive animal. He's definitely he looks like he's either as big or maybe even slightly bigger than a female gorilla.
Typically found in males because males tend to be larger and things like gorillas. But even in the Billy apes, like you can find a little partial crest or like a keel in some of the females, and the reason is because they're big. The males are big, the females are big. They're all really big, and so when people first saw them, they're like, "Oh, this is the killer ape," because these apes were notoriously like shy around people, and it's because they didn't live even near any local groups really. So they didn't even have the human interaction that most other groups of wild apes do, which is that there are people that live around them. And so they at least see and encounter people. These guys just they didn't see people at all. So they were like, what the heck is this? And they were out of there. So they're big eastern chimps that have minimal human interaction, and you get a very mysterious ape. So
Yeah. Well, there was so they killed a leopard was one of the big stories about that, but chimps can kill. and leopards are something that they band together. If there's something other than other apes that they kill, I guess leopards or other primates they kill. I guess leopards would be up there on the list.
Sure. I mean, why
Rival.
not? Right? Like, you get a leopard that comes into as you know, big cats they're ambush predators, right? They're not grapplers. So if a chimpanzee can survive the initial contact with a leopard, where it comes to try to get at the back of the neck and they manage to turn or whatever, they've actually got a pretty decent chance of fending it off. And I imagine this situation, whatever it was, the leopard just couldn't get away. It was like, call an ambulance, but not for me. Then they...
And they got the chimps have. How long can a chimp's canine generally get?
Big, yeah, they get pretty big. I got chip back here.
Oh,
They can
goodness.
get pretty big. I mean, this is a male. But males, they're about 20-30% larger than females in the canine height. But females can get pretty big. I mean, they're not that dimorphic. They get pretty big.
Yeah.
teeth.
Apes have a pretty good bite force too, from what I understand. Like you were talking about the sagittal crest, so they sink their teeth into that leopard's throat or something. It's over.
Humans actually have a pretty decent bite force for what we are as well. I mean, we don't have the sagittal crest, but we do have nice big temporalis and masseter. Got a nice situation there. But we also have really small jaws.
Are you guys asking about camel evolution? I did talk about camel evolution a little bit with one of the leading scientists in the study of fossil camel evolution on Skeptic Haven just a few weeks ago. So, yeah, let me see if maybe I can mirror that over here if you guys are interested in that conversation. We also talked about fossil rhinos. It was a good conversation.
So that might be influenced.
Because we started cooking our food, lazy.
I know.
Yeah.
If you don't use it, you lose it sometimes.
Now you want to just before we close out, this is the last bit I have on here. Was I guess I got Harambe on the very end there, but
Rest in peace.
yeah, the Deloise ape. Do you want to touch on that real quick?
Deloise ape. Okay, am I allowed to? Can I bring up genitals? Am I going to demonetize us if we talk genitals for a minute?
No, you go ahead and talk genitals. The Hive loves talking about genitals, right, guys?
Okay. So the thing about Deloise ape. So Deloise ape was this. It's a picture, a famous cryptid picture that supposedly came out of South America, and they were like, "We found this big ape. It's definitely an ape. It's definitely not a member of Ateles for sure. It's definitely not just a spider monkey with a forced perspective. It's for sure an ape. It's not." The Deloise ape looks like verbatim like an Atelid. Specifically, like I think what they say is Ateles Shemek or Peniscus, one of the two. It's a spider monkey. And one of the ways that we know it's a spider monkey, to get a bit graphic, is spider monkey females are known for having enlarged clitorises, not unlike what you see with hyenas. And so Deloise ape, everything's right there, right? It's very characteristic. You can see this is a spider monkey. It's got the enlarged clitoris. It's got the almost gibbon-esque face where they've got this large eyes, kind of a reduced prognathic face, but they still have decently large canines. Big lanky arms that are perfect for brachiation, relatively short legs. Deloise ape is not an ape. As much as I would love, more than anything, for there to be a secret, hitherto unfound species of hominid living in South America that isn't humans, it's a spider monkey.
That's a spider monkey. Right?
And the biggest tell is they took one picture and it's from the front. You can't see its butt. You don't know if it has a tail or not. There's no tail.
They gotta hide that tail. Yeah.
Hide the tail. So
yeah,
And
there's a story about what happened to it.
These are banana plant stumps, right? So this wasn't even taken in the far reaches of the jungle because bananas are not native to South America. This picture was taken somewhere with a cultivar, with someone where there was cultivated banana plants.
To like, oh, we cut its head off because we couldn't take the whole thing because it was so big, and then we used the head as an ashtray and it decomposed. It's like, what? You discover a missing link, because the idea was pushed as this racial idea of multi what do they call it, the opposite out of Africa.
Yeah, multi-regional.
And
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the killer ape stuff to briefly get political, there are roots there as well, right? There is the desire to call areas that are non-westernized, like these secret places that are primitive and hold the missing link that still lives in harmony with the savage race.
Jason, you're a 6 foot tall monkey. Don't sell yourself short. Apes are in are catarrhines, which are old world monkeys, right? Apes are catarrhines. So, as catarrhines, any ape is a monkey, and as we are hominoids, we are apes. So we are indeed old world monkeys. Hence, we are 6 foot monkeys.
Races, and I mean, come on, right? Like,
Yeah.
and of course, the ape always, like you said earlier, the killer ape always steals like a white blonde, and it's like,
Yes,
it's curious.
King Kong, right there.
Yeah, it's quite strange, because like we sent nothing but Caucasian Western women to study all the groups of apes, and they all came back perfectly fine.
Yep.
So
Yeah, with no ape hybrid babies or anything like that coming out of it.
Jane and Blue.
nope.
Yeah, that's what. Next time I have you on, I think that's what I want to cover with you too. By the way, is the human ape experiments. At some point, we got to talk about that. With Stalin's
Ivanov.
ape men and all that.
Yeah, I think the guy's name was Ivanov. Yeah, we can talk all about that because I mean, I'm of the opinion, right? Like humans, it's.
You think it's possible?
If you could bypass the zona pellucida, the kind of shell, quote unquote, the membrane around the egg that like gate checks sperm that comes through. I don't know if anything would actually come to term, but like there are plenty of other hybrids that have mismatched numbers of chromosomes that if you do artificial insemination, you can get a hybrid, which is weird.
Have they ever hybridized the Pannons?
To my knowledge, no. In fact, someone said the other day, it was Tompkins. Tompkins said the other day, he was like, yeah, the chimpanzees and bonobos are interfertile. I don't know if they are. It wouldn't surprise me if they were, but like, I've never heard of a hybrid actually
I hadn't
happening.
either, yeah.
I've not ever heard of that happening. And the reason I would imagine is because there is reproductive isolation here. It's social. There's social reproductive isolation. A bonobo would never solicit a chimpanzee, or rather, a chimpanzee would never solicit a bonobo, one or the other.
Fertilized.
Whenever, any kind of match going on there. Plus, they're separated by the Congo. They're both endangered. Like, the only time I could ever imagine this happening is if someone happened to house the two together. But, like, logistically, that has, I don't think, ever happened simply because they live in just drastically different portions of Africa, right? Like,
so I would have suspected that, like in early zoos, that they may have not known the difference between bonobos and chimps and housed them together at certain points. I wonder if that might be part of the social stress that we see for these wild killer apes behaviors, because you got two different species that these dumb apes can't tell the difference between. So
it wouldn't surprise me if they could hybridize. Like, humans can hybridize with Neanderthals, although I believe there's still some argument for potential hybrid sterility in some pairs, depending on who mom is and who dad is, which species. I don't know. I mean, reproductive isolation is so weird, and it's so haphazard in the way that it happens, because like you can get reproductive isolation quickly, like in the ring species that we see with some of the salamanders out in California. And then you have, American paddlefish and Russian sturgeon, and they can hybridize, and they split like 230 million years ago. So it's like something along those lines. Like somewhere just 200 plus million years ago. So I don't know if it's 30 exactly, but
yeah,
evolution is weird.
Like split when the
sometimes it
Chinese
happens-
and American alligators split, same time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they can still hybridize. So like when they can hybridize, like when they're housed in the same area, right? These sturgeon, these paddlefish.
Yeah, they
hybridize.
produce offspring. Absolutely.
But
Okay.
they're only available too. So like, even like, it's just crazy. Evolution is nuts. Life finds a way.
All right, and I got the last question. Yeah, I mentioned Harambe. Was Harambe the victim of the killer ape myth?
Man, the Harambe situation is so dicey, right? Because it's like, I'm a primatologist. I love primates, but at the same time, like, there was a kid in danger with that, right? Like, you have a kid who fell into, a pit with a father silverback who had not been a father, to my understanding. So like he just did not know how to react with this intruder. Kids have fallen into pens with apes so many times, and we've had one fatality, and it was with Harambe, and Harambe was the fatality, right? Like,
Yeah.
It just, I don't think, from my understanding of talking with folks who specialize with gorillas or who study gorillas, they've told me like it's probably unlikely that Harambe would have killed the kid, but he could have gotten seriously hurt with all the dragging, and that could have caused some kind of permanent injuries to the child. And so it's like Harambe probably wasn't trying to kill him, but the danger, the risk was there for being seriously harmed, and so they shot him to save the kid. And it's just it's such a tragic situation, right? Like, because Harambe, it wasn't really his fault, right? Like this kid.
What is super weird is if like this had happened to one of my kids, I would have been in the pen with the gorilla. I would have got in there with him and got my child. You wouldn't have been able to stop me. I would have been over the same way my kid got in there. I'd be right behind him getting in there. That's just I didn't have the audio on here because we were talking, but the mother of the child's like, "Oh, mommy's here. Mommy loves you." Not enough to jump in the gorilla pen, but she loves you. No, I would have been in there. Harambe could hurt me for sure. I mean, duh. But there's certain. I think that getting in there and getting that, I think that he, with a human in there, adult human in there, he might have backed off. I don't know. We'll never know now. Anyway.
Kid falls into his house and he's like, "What the hell is this?" And he's like messing around with him, hurting him unintentionally though. And really, who should be punished is the parents of that kid who weren't watching him. I mean.
Well, every time a kid falls into a animal pit at a zoo, that it's the parent who is responsible for that child, right?
Who's watching the kid? Yeah, or like little kids who like stick their hands into the caged bars and stuff like that, and they get their fingers nipped by a bird or something. I don't know. I hope they got fined. I hope something happened. I hope something bad happened with them, because that just sucks. That sucks so much.
Yeah, poor guy.
Poor guy.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, any final thoughts on the killer ape and the history behind it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my final thoughts with it are like this was a cryptid that was originally put forward kind of on the basis of these initial interactions that people were having and misunderstanding with animals like gorillas and perhaps chimpanzees, but probably more likely gorillas. This idea perpetuated itself because people, tend to take these urban legends and spin them, or perhaps, people were exacerbating, or perhaps people were exacerbating them due to encounters with captive animals that were especially violent due to the nature of these animals. They're kept stressed and anxious early on in the history of zoos. And so as a result, people come up with this idea that like, well, the killer ape must have come from somewhere. It's probably still lurking out there in the African continent. And, people love to stick cryptids in places where it's really hard to look for. So
yeah. There's dinosaurs out there in the Congo too.
The Mokele and Mbembe. Yeah, the creationists love that one. That one creationist guy has been out there like 40 times looking for that thing. Still hasn't found it. Yeah, but long story short, there is a killer ape. That's right, the punchline. The killer ape is here. We were the killer ape all along.
Yes. The call was coming from inside the house, right?
It was coming from inside the house. It was probably, you get right down to it. Humans are humans, and we're apes, and apes have personalities that differ greatly. We're very much subject to the pressures of our in-groups, and it's just good old-fashioned run-of-the-mill social variety that I think lends itself to a lot of the violence that we see in non-human apes, or inappropriate housing and drugging them up with Valium.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, I appreciate you swinging by to hang out.
Yeah.
And again, I would love to have you back to talk about the hybrid, the ape hybrid theory and all that at some point.
Yeah,
in time, so.
Yeah, we gotta make that happen at some point. I gotta read up on it more though, because like it's been quite some time. And the last I'd heard of it was like might be possible, but like who's gonna test it? Like I would want that to happen, right? Like I'm very interested, but I kind of wish it was one of those things where it was like someone already was ethically dubious in the past, and we can know from their horrible actions and not have to ponder it now. But then that would also require someone in the past to have experienced something horrible like that, so I don't want that either. My curiosity exists, but this is one of those when Reddit asks, like, if you could do one unethical experiment with no consequences, like it's all a simulation or something like that, that would be an interesting one to ask.
Yeah. What would you even do with the offspring of that? There's a whole lot of ethics to go.
There's so much bad with it, man. Like it's, I think that's honestly one of the bigger ones too. Like, how do you bring a critter like that into the world? Like the only one of its kind. Like clearly socially inclined, intelligent. Like, and then there's the whole like, I mean, you'd have to do it. I think you do it in a lab, right? Like, but the person who donates, the egg or the sperm, like that's a whole thing too. Like, there's that's dubious. Like, there's just.
Because does it have the rights of a human? Would somebody have to have parental rights over it? Would the lab have parental rights over it? All these dubious things where I don't even know where you would start. Human hybrids.
A mess. Like, I honestly think the only way to solve this problem would be to program it, right? To like come up with a way to simulate, the cellular replication, right at conception, and then be like, what if you had, an egg that looked like this and sperm that looked like this? What would happen? And that would have to be the way that you go about it. Because the rest is just too.
Yeah, it gets a little creepy outside.
Little creepy.
All right. Well, yeah. Thanks again for dropping in and. Yeah, sudden end. Sorry, guys. We started talking about another topic there before that, and I just didn't want to include that because it was off topic. But hold on just a second. All right. So thank you so much for joining in for this very special episode of Cryptic Corner, where we talked about the killer ape cryptid from Africa, this alleged monstrous primate that stalks the African jungles. That we just haven't found it yet, but it's out there, right? Such a silly concept, but that was our Cryptic Corner for the day, and I'd like to thank again Erica for joining us today. Erica is an amazing resource for all things primate. Check her channel out and make sure to let her know the Hive sent you if you aren't subscribed already. But I don't think anybody that follows my channel doesn't already follow Erica. Yeah, so I will just close it out here. Thank you for joining us tonight on Cryptic Corner, and please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time. All right, so now for all my live from the Hive audience, hello my beauties and bees. I will see you guys over in Creation Watch. See you over there.
All right, my beauties and bees, welcome to Creation Watch. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are about to dive into yet more tonight's conspiracy stuff from the Protestant corner of things. That's where we find ourselves delving over and over again, unfortunately. So, this is the channel I think we've done before. So I don't want to imply that this is something, that this is a new direction that we're taking things, but let me show you what we're looking at today, and the channel that we're looking at. It's I think this may be one of the ones that we did that was like about talking about how the rock stars sold their souls and things, that we looked at part of one of these let's see. So there we go. I'm going to make that bigger now that I don't have Erica on here anymore. Okay, so this is the channel's called Treasure Christ. Let's proclaim and treasure Christ forever. Subscribe to help these videos. What's this message? Receive. Or reach more people, yeah. And it's like a evangelical channel, right? Oh, we got Dylan Mulvaney right at the top. Maybe we watch that one instead. I did have this one lined up to watch, about the Church of England approving gay marriage, but I haven't watched this one yet. But you guys probably get tired of me covering trans topics, so maybe that's a little too much to lean into right now. I don't know. Let's watch this. Let's watch the one we had set up first. Okay, what is this mysterious figure, right? Let's go. Let's dive right in. King Charles is hiding something. John MacArthur. Hold on. Can we just take a moment to appreciate how weird religion is? And we don't think anything weird about it. Like, there are three men in garish robes, garish ornate robes, standing before a platform with, or a table, I guess, with, we have multiple red velvet crowns with gold. We have like wands and scepters down here. We've got big giant plates, and this is the Church of England, right? This is, can we just appreciate the utter bizarreness of ritual behavior? It's like, because this is like, none of this stuff, it's just symbolic, right? So we remember symbolic creatures. I guess I'm hung up on the primate stuff from the last section here, but it's just, this is like just psychodrama, right? We're just like, they're trying to convince the masses that something actually has transferred to this man, to King Charles, right? Via this coronation, via this ceremony, that something supernatural or something that transcends, the physical world has transferred from the deceased queen to her son. Mm-hmm. Woke. Why is it anytime I'm covering Protestant stuff on Creation Watch, it has to go woke? The video's muted. Okay. No, it's not muted. It's coming through the wrong sound. God dang it. All right.
Well, you could read what he was saying, right?
England is now woke, or however Fox News would want to talk about it. And this because the church is considering using gender-neutral terms for God, which as it turns out is actually more consistent with its long-held belief that God is not...
Yeah, Christians have recognized since ancient time that God is neither male nor female. The Church of England said in an email statement, yet the variety of ways of addressing and describing God found in Scripture has not always been reflected in our worship. Yeah, so why is God male? It doesn't seem like the way that because these are the same people. It's like, oh, it's, they think, oh, it's being male is or being a he, him, or whatever is biological, and you can't, and God doesn't have a body. He doesn't have any biology. He's a supernatural creature or whatever. He's not. So why does he get to say, yes, this is my pronouns, without any kind of physical evidence, without any kind of physical proof, without, we're not looking at God's birth certificate. You aren't checking God's chromosomes. You can't shove your hand down God's pants outside the bathroom. So why does he get you're good to go. Why do supernatural entities, why do fictional characters get to have their own gender identity without any support for it? You don't have just I'll pull somebody from fiction right now. You don't have Harry Potter's birth certificate. You don't know what's down Potter's pants. You don't have Potter's freaking DNA. So I mean, we just assign literary characters gender without any of the stuff that they're demanding from me.
Neither male nor female. And some priests have already changed prayers to switch he to God or they, and have started the Lord's Prayer to our Father and Mother. Though this isn't even the biggest progressive step the Church of England has recently taken, because it just voted to allow blessings of same-sex couples. Though notably, the church isn't fully changing its position on gay marriage. They still can't marry in the church, they can just receive God's blessing after a civil marriage or partnership.
Step in the right direction, though. I mean, freaking, stupid behind, right? Like, you're way behind, behind the times, but step in the right direction. It's yeah.
And clergy members can opt out of using the prayers, but many still see this as a moment of hope for progress.
Here. I know that what we have proposed as a way forward does not go nearly far enough for many, but too far for others, said Bishop of London, Sarah Mullally, who has overseen the development of the proposal, but she added, this is a moment of hope for the church. The fact that this is a woman saying this is probably enough to get full rejection from pretty much any American evangelical, right? They don't put women women do not fill that role in most of their societies.
For the church's future.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you his peace.
I'm really pleased it's changing. For my, gay friends. I'm really pleased. And no, it's not enough for some, and I'm really sorry it's not enough. We've spent so much time listening and working with people across a whole range of diversities. It has brought us to
I believe this would be the Anglican Church, right? So basically this is Catholicism, but Anglican Catholicism. Correct me if I'm wrong. I may have it twisted, but I believe that's the church that we're looking at here. Now, the fact that they're making this change now, it's they have female clergy apparently, and it sounds like they do have clergy that supports this, but we're going to get more into it here. So
a new knowledge and a new place of humility before God, before church, before the world, where we can say, yes, we got it wrong. And we're not saying, by the way, we think we've got it right now, but we are saying this is a good place to be. and I wasn't expecting to get emotional. But I am. Because I think it puts the Church of England in a better place. And I really hope that we can hold together our unity. And I cry out for those who hate what we're doing and say, we want to hold you together in this, but this is the fullest pastoral provision that we can offer at the moment without changing legislation, which would take years anyway. Years and years.
The Lord protect you in all your ways and prosper all your work in his name.
2,000 years of Christian doctrine
now
cannot
this
be
guy is absolute cringe right here. Calvin Robinson calls out the Church of England. This guy is like literally the worst. Let's listen to what this trash bag has to say.
At the whim of a few liberal bishops. What is God ordained cannot be adjusted to suit our new liberal progressive view.
It was not God ordained. It was misinterpreted. How about put it that way? Like the guy we just listened to said that they had interpreted God's commands wrong, and now they're making adjustments because Jesus actually said, "Hey, you leave your neighbors alone and let God judge them." So, yeah.
Marriage is heterosexual and monogamous and should be open to the possibility of children. The Bible backs all of this up. It's very clear throughout on this matter.
The Lord give you hope.
Did you hear the little ding that they put in there? Like it was, like he hit some nail on the head when it's just, they like, the people who agree, who are like, oh yeah, this guy's got it. They just want, that's what they want it to say because it confirms their own internal hatred of gay people, same-sex marriage.
Happiness that you may inspire all your people in the imitation of his unchanging love.
We cannot redefine marriage. And I know what you're saying here, right? You say we can't redefine marriage, but haven't we redefined marriage? No, we haven't. The message is that marriage is just for us. You all can't have it. That's the message. It's like, this is something special for us. Nobody else gets it but us because we're Christian and we decided that the Bible decides who can have a union. Redefined marriage. We've blasphemed the God who created marriage, but we haven't redefined it.
And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be with you and remain with you always. Amen.
The coronation of King Charles III is particularly significant to Christians because of its emphasis upon the relationship that King Charles has to the Church of England, which is the official church of the country. As monarch, King Charles is supposed to be the defender of the faith, but he presides over a church that has pretty much completely compromised concerning what the Bible clearly teaches.
Or maybe you guys have compromised.
In an open letter, we together apologise for the pain, hostility, exclusion and rejection that LGBTQI people have experienced within the Church. We realise that this behaviour has not reflected the universal love of God for all people. We know that we need to change.
Reverend Calvin Robinson is a deacon in the Free Church of England who has been calling out the hypocrisy and heresy of the Church of England concerning LGBTQ issues.
So my question to the bishops would be, do we not believe in the authority of scriptures anymore? Can we pick and choose which parts of the gospel we adhere to?
Do you? I bet the clothes that you're wearing right now demonstrates that you're pick and choosing which parts of the Bible that you want to adhere to. Of course, I noticed that, yeah, he did say gospels. So, yeah, I need you to point out in the gospels where anybody but Paul said anything about gay people. I don't think Jesus said anything about gay people. So you're gonna be like, oh well, Jesus is here to uphold the laws of the Old Testament, the Levitical laws and all that. Well, then again, I direct you back to your mixed fabric garment there, my good sir.
The church after all, is Christ's bride, as we heard earlier. Jesus is described as the bridegroom, so that we may know.
It's funny because of all the churches, the Church of England was founded on rewriting the scriptures, right? Of any church, the Church of England is, we know for a fact, because divorce, they wanted divorce, rewriting the scriptures. That's what is the foundation. It's fundamental to the Church of England that you reinterpret the scriptures. It's the foundation of it.
How he relates to us. Two grooms would be pointless. Christ is already in union with the Father and the Holy Spirit. It's us he's inviting in.
It's the same sex or same gender because they're the same guy, right? It's a three-way, so they're poly.
Two brides is what we're looking at here. The church is attempting to marry itself and to leave Christ out of the picture. We are directly talking about undermining God's plan as he has revealed it to us. We're replacing his authority with our own.
And because Robinson has been fighting to defend Scripture, he has been punished by the Church of England.
A good friend of mine, the GB News presenter, writer and political commentator Calvin Robinson, a man of deep religious faith, intellect and integrity, has had his proposed ordination.
Does he have integrity though? He's like, I'm okay with the reinterpretation of the Bible in order to let the king get a divorce, but we can't change anything else. He's weird. He's like got weird double standards. He's a weird dude. And it's really just bigotry. And they're like, oh, why you trying to reinterpret God? No, we're not. We're trying to be consistent. If we're gonna, and I'm not speaking for the Church of England. I'm just basically basing it off the messages I've heard from the other individuals that they're saying, hey, we've decided that it's not our place to judge. Yeah, this guy just wants to discriminate against queer people.
Nation to become a priest cancelled by the Church of England. How are you doing emotionally and spiritually?
It's been a whirlwind. Let's just say that. On the one hand, it's been heartbreaking.
So wait a second. He's gonna be like. So this is like, you know, they say go broke and go woke, go broke. But it seems like if you don't, you go broke. He's like, this is like he's doing the Church of England version of a Gina Carano, right? Just like throwing himself on a sword for bigotry. It's he thinks I guess he's going for martyrdom. I don't know.
And soul destroying because I haven't applied for a job. I haven't gone for a position. I've been discerning and praying through a long process of months and years to a calling, something that I feel called to by God, and so that the church acknowledged that calling. So to be denied it at the last minute after I've just finished my training is hard. But at the same time, it's like a weight off my shoulders. I feel liberated from the stifling establishment, and I can now get on with
the stifling establishment. So you became a member of the Church of England and didn't want to be subject to a stifling establishment? That's like self-defeating. That's like someone saying, oh man, I hate talking to people, and then going into like customer service. It's like somebody saying, man, I wish I could have a job where I sit down and sit on my butt all day and applying to be like a construction worker. It's not, it seems like not the line of work you should go into if you find establishments stifling.
My ministry without having to battle the wokeness within the church every day on issues of gender, race, sexuality, and get back to scripture, get back to the Bible, and get back to teaching what we're supposed to be teaching.
Similar to Vodi Bakum.
People always tell on themselves with when they use the word woke, especially when you see a black man use the word woke. It's bizarre because it's actually a racial term. It is an original designation. Didn't have anything to do with gender or sexuality. It was specifically about racial issues. It's only recently extended to cover those based specifically on right wing, just trying to lump it all together under one term, just trying to create a great terminology. They did the same thing with CRT, right? The critical race theory, demonized it and whatnot, when it's not even something that was taught in schools. It was taught at a collegiate level when you're talking about economic theory and going to school to be a lawyer and things like that.
Whom we heard from earlier. Calvin Robinson refuses to accept the Church of England's compromise concerning LGBTQ issues, recognizing this compromise to be concerning non-negotiable issues that go to the heart of the gospel.
The same commands and stuff, the same biblical commands that that the Church of England is seceded from the Catholic Church because of. It's the same sections of the Bible that they're talking about. The same ones that they decided to reinterpret for the king and separate from the Catholic Church. It's the same section of guidelines, of biblical guidelines that are telling you that you can't recognize and accept like same-sex people and whatnot. Yeah.
Since marriage is supposed to be an illustration of the gospel.
We see in
Ephesians... Right, which includes no divorce, right? Which is why the Church of England seceded. This is so ironic. You guys don't even get it. It's because the people making this video aren't from this isn't from people from the Church of England. This is American Protestants that this video is for. Not actually for the people that are part of this church.
Chapter 5, for example, that marriage is not just for procreation and also for sanctification, this righteous outlet for human sexual desires, but it's also for illustration. This beautiful picture of the relationship.
Righteous outlet. How does God lay that down? Because it's supposed to be the marriage. What they were saying earlier, that it's supposed to be like a reflection of God's marriage or the church's marriage to God. Where's the sexual part of that? Where it's righteous, whereas God sticking his divine member into the Church of England. How's that happening? Is it Charles? Does Charles now assume the position since the Queen's gone and take God's royal decree?
Relationship between Jesus Christ and his bride, the church. Jesus Christ, who gives us a picture of what real male headship and marriage is supposed to look like when he lays down his life for his bride, when he takes upon himself the sins of his people and suffers the punishment due to their sins, so that their righteousness being imputed, or their sinfulness being imputed to him, his righteousness can be imputed to them, so that in this double imputation, double imputation. That's the name of his Pornhub channel, I guess. Double imputation. He's doing look at these mental gymnastics going on. He's trying to sort it out how he can justify his bigotry and make it sound biblical. He can atone for their sins and save them from their sins and grant them entree into eternity with the triune God and his perfect unity. Christ died for sin, once for all, the just for the unjust, in order that he may bring us back to God. God made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, so that we might become the righteousness of God in him. This is what marriage is a picture of, which means that when we go to...
Is this what religious training is all about? It's like how to take what's in the Bible and twist it around in word salads to make people feel good about their own social cruelties towards different people.
War against Genesis 2, we go to war against the gospel.
As Christians, we need to ask ourselves,
as the Church of England, you went to war against Genesis 2, if you're saying, because Genesis 2 is, you're talking about the union, right? So, between man and woman, by seceding from the Catholic Church so that they can have divorce, is literally going against that. So it's already done. That's already been done a long time ago.
About what Scripture teaches to stand against the compromises of some of the most powerful, supposedly Christian leaders in the world
supposedly
today.
Christian leaders. You're the supposedly Christian leaders. And maybe these are the real ones. How do you know? That's the thing. I was like, because I know when I get to heaven, God's going to tell me I'm right. No, you don't. Nobody knows that. These people could be right and you could be wrong. But you don't even consider that.
Because it's not just the Church of England that is compromised concerning this issue. The reason why pastors such as Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, and Mike Todd are pretty much completely accepted by elites in the culture, such as Oprah Winfrey, is because they too are not willing to stand firm upon what Scripture clearly teaches about these issues.
Will a gay person be accepted into heaven as you see it?
Well, I believe they will.
And trust me, I've talked to enough LGBT, they are not all the same.
Oh, for sure. Any more than all Christians are the same.
No.
But how do we, first of all, has your thinking evolved on this?
Evolved and evolving. Evolved and evolving.
No, I'm serious. As a pastor, like, so what do you think about gay men? I don't know.
As Christians, will we stand with churches and people such
I
as the
Jesus.
Church of England,
So
Joel
they're like
Osteen,
they're
T.D.
like
Jakes?
going with Jesus, right? They're actually clicked on something and tried to ban Carrie Ann. I didn't want to do that. But they're basically saying, hey, Jesus said that he's gonna sort this kind of stuff out. So we're just gonna keep going and treating people good like Jesus said, and let him sort that out when they get there. That's what these other pastors are saying. And you're like, no, we have to be hateful to them and exclude them from our culture and society. That's wrong. That's not biblical.
And Mike Todd. Or will we stand firm upon the clear teachings of Scripture?
If Jesus was God, he knew they were there. He knew they were there, right?
Yes, I absolutely do believe he knows he's there.
And
That's
yet
weird.
he never said a word to overturn the unanimous understanding, because I don't think you could show me anyone before Jesus or for hundreds of years after Jesus in Judaism that understood anything about monogamous, loving, same-sex relationships. They all went back Leviticus 18. They all went back Leviticus 20. They all looked at these things in the same way. So why didn't Jesus set them free? Because he knew they were...
But dude, you're going back to Levitical law. Do you really want to go back to Levitical law? I bet you don't. I bet you have your shrimp kebabs and your mixed fabrics and all that good stuff.
Were there.
We have been given the keys to the kingdom of God. Jesus declared that to his apostles. I give you the keys to the kingdom of God. Our responsibility is to tell people about the kingdom of God and who can be in the kingdom of God and who is excluded from the kingdom of God. That's the ministry of the church. That's what we do. That's what every preacher must do. And I'm not the one who makes the terms. I am only the one responsible to God to proclaim what God has revealed. And I'm here to tell you that if you advocate a life of sexual sin, adultery, fornication, effeminateness, or homosexuality...
Effeminateness? I was like, oh my gosh. Effeminateness, is that just for... people born male, I guess?
You will not inherit the kingdom of God.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like these videos and want to help support this channel, the best way to do it is...
Yeah, we're not gonna advertise for you though, pal. So that was King Charles is hiding something. It was more about the Church of England being like, you know what? We're cool with gay people. We won't marry them, but we're cool with them. Which is, a step in the right direction, sure, but definitely not the direction that they need to be taken, which is to full on. They want to have their rights to discriminate, but people will always want to have their rights to discriminate. We just got to keep pushing, keep trying. We will get there eventually. All right. So thank you so much for joining me tonight for Creation Watch. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we'll see you next time. All right. So now for my Live from the Hive audience. As you know, we got one more segment of the show coming up here. So I will see you after this 8-bit break.
But we don't yet know whether the universe is open or closed. More than that, there are a few astronomers who doubt that the redshift of distant galaxies is due to the Doppler effect, who are skeptical about the expanding universe and the Big Bang. Perhaps our descendants will regard our present ignorance with as much sympathy as we feel to the ancients for not knowing whether the Earth went around the sun. If the general picture, however, of a Big Bang followed by an expanding universe is correct, what happened before that? Was the universe devoid of all matter and then the matter suddenly somehow created? How did that happen? In many cultures, the customary answer is that a god or gods created the universe out of nothing. But if we wish to pursue this question courageously, we must, of course, ask the next question. Where did God come from? If we decide that this is an unanswerable question, why not save a step and conclude that the origin of the universe is an unanswerable question? Or, if we say that God always existed, why not save a step and conclude that the universe always existed, that there's no need for a creation, it was always here? These are not easy questions. Cosmology brings us face to face with the deepest mysteries, with questions that were once treated only in religion and myth.
All right, welcome to HiveScience. We have some amazing evolution stuff to talk about today, and maybe we're going to learn a little bit about Luca. What do you guys think of that? Do you guys know what Luca is? My Hive's really smart, but I'll assume that some people watching this might not know. Luca is the last universal common ancestor. Now, there's a few things to know about Luca. Luca would be the last universal common ancestor for all existing life right now. That's not to say that Luca was the first organism. Luca would have been part of a population, and there were other populations of organisms alive at the same time as Luca that didn't leave any descendants at all. So while Luca is our last universal common ancestor, there were organisms that lived alongside Luca and had a common ancestor with Luca that are not our common ancestor at all. So there are branches that died off before Luca, millions and millions of years before Luca. But Luca is the last universal common ancestor for all the extant life today. So I stumbled upon this really cool article the other day, and I thought you guys would love to learn a little bit about it. Decades-old questions surrounding the start of the Tree of Life could finally be solved. Scientists used a novel application of chromosomal analysis to finally answer a question that has challenged biologists for over a century. After decades of debate, scientists believe they have identified the most recent ancestor of the sister to all animals
Oh, this isn't Luca, because Luca would be for animals, plants, fungus. This is just for animals. Just for animals specifically. So this is going to be the last universal common ancestor for all animals. So it is Luca, but not the universal Luca. It's just the Luca for animals, for the kingdom of Animalia. All right. After decades of debate, scientists believe they have identified the most recent ancestor of the sister to all animals via the novel use of an analytic technique. The finding settles a central question about the evolution of the entire tree of animal life. All animal life is descended from a single common ancestor, a multicellular organism that most likely lived more than 600 million years ago. This ancestor had two offspring, one that led to the evolution of animal life, and another that is referred to as the sister to all animals. In the quest to identify which living animals are most closely related to this sister group, scientists have narrowed it down to the possibility of two candidates: the sea sponges and the comb jellies. That's the ctenophores. Conclusive evidence to support either candidate, however, has remained elusive. Now, a new study published in May 17th in the journal Nature has resolved the long-running debate with the novel use of chromosomal analysis. The debate over the ancestors of sea sponges and comb jellies has been going on for decades. Yeah, look at those. Both really cool clades. So either one I'm going to be happy with. Actually, I'm going to do a poll before we get to the end of the store or the article, so you all can see which one we think is going to be Let's see how we're going to word this. Which one is the closest to the sister clade? That's how we'll word it. And we're going to go sponges or comb jellies. Yep. And while I read on, you guys are going to vote. The solution came while Darren T. Schultz, lead author and current postdoctoral researcher at the University of Vienna, and a multi-institutional team were sequencing the genomes and complete sets of genetic information of comb jellies and their close relatives to understand more about their evolution. Rather than comparing individual genes, the team looked at their position on chromosomes across species. While changes to DNA occurred over the course of evolution, genes tend to remain the same on the same chromosome. On rare occasions of fusion and mixing, genes transfer from one chromosome to another in an irreversible process. Schultz compares this to shuffling a deck of cards. If you have two decks of cards and you shuffle them, they become mixed. Once mixed, you can't unmix it in the way it was before, and the probability that is almost impossible, Schultz told HiveScience. In other words, once a gene has moved from one chromosome to another, there is almost zero chance of it appearing in the original position again further down the evolutionary line. By looking at the large-scale movements of groups of genes across the animal groups. Schultz and the team were able to gain important insight into the family tree of these animals. The team found 14 groups of genes that appeared to separate chromosomes in comb jellies and their single-celled non-animal relatives. Interesting, in sponges and all other animals, these genes are arranged into 7 groups. Given that DNA of the comb jelly holds the gene groups in the original position prior to rearranging into 7 groups, it is indicative that they are descendants of the sister group that broke from the animal family tree before the mixing occurred. Further, the gene location rearrangements that were common to both sponges and other animals, a shared ancestor from which these rearrangements were inherited. The findings, therefore, resolve the controversial question over the lineage of the entire animal tree of life. Since the ancestors of comb jellies and sponges branched off from the family tree, their modern descendants have continued to evolve. So we cannot use this information to indicate what the first animal exactly looked like. However, scientists believe there is significant value in studying these modern animals in light of this new information about the lineage. If we understand how all animals are related to one another, it helps us understand how animals evolved. The things that make them animals, Schultz said. All right. So, I think, yeah. Comb jellies. Comb jellies was the answer. How many had comb jellies on the poll? Let's see, 29%. 29% got it right. Yeah, it was actually, it looks like the sponges was what most of us were thinking, but comb jellies were the answer. Okay, so thank you so much for sticking around for this last little segment of Hive Sci here. And I appreciate everybody for hanging out. Please remember to be kind and take care. We will see you next time. All right, and now for my live from the Hive audience, please remember to, I haven't got the link up yet, but I do have, I'm having a guy I talked tonight with One Ring 42. We are talking about wolves. So we will need to get that link up as soon as possible, but it's going to be tonight, 7:30 Central Standard Time. Be there or be square. We're gonna lock horns about wolves and their status in the lower 48. Should be fun. Yep. Additional conversation today. All right, now this is the final goodbye. So. Thank you so much for sticking around for Live from the Hive. Always appreciate a good, active live chat. I did see some arguing going on and stuff, some debating going on about, socialism and capitalism and all that good stuff. So fun times. I love it. We had Gutsick Gibbon as our special guest today, talking about the killer ape hypothesis. We had some Church of England controversy that's just making the American conservatives really mad. We had the origin of all animals finally discovered. It's weird that that's the small segment that I had at the end here. It's kind of important. So I'll see you guys tonight when we will be howling over wolf conservation. So once again, please be kind. Please take care, and we'll see you next time.
All it's supposed to feel.